What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It is time for our post-spring SEC power rankings. Yesterday, I did the Big Ten. If you missed that video, go back and check it out. But we're moving on here to the SEC. And like I said in that video, I forgot to do the pre-spring power rankings. I meant to do them, had them all ready to go, and I just never did the videos. So this is the post-spring power rankings. You're not going to see any change because there was no pre-spring power rankings, but I have changed my thoughts on some of these teams a little bit, and we've had more transfers. We've learned some things during the spring, and we're going to give you these power rankings. We'll do them again before the start of the season in a few months, but we're going to start with number 14, and that is Vanderbilt. Really, no reason to get all that excited if you're a Vanderbilt fan. They had a few transfers come in, but they lost a lot of guys from last year's team as well. We'll see, back at a returning quarterback, that'll help them out. But winning a game in this conference for Vanderbilt, I think, is going to be a very tough task this year. I think this is clearly the worst team in the conference, and we're going to start them off here at number 14. Number 13 is South Carolina, and really, South Carolina is not going to be a horrible team. But when you look at the rest of the teams in the SEC, I don't know how many of those teams they're going to be able to compete with. New head coach, it's going to be take a little bit of time to find out if South Carolina is going to be able to kind of get things turned around. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when Steve Spurrier was the head coach at South Carolina, and they were competing in this division to win the SEC East. Went to an SEC championship. So it could be done. It's tough, especially with the rise of Clemson in their own state, and you have to play them in the non-conference every year. Plus, this conference, the SEC, is obviously very tough. But South Carolina, a long ways to go. They've got some talented guys. They got maybe the best returning running back in the SEC. They're not going to be horrible. They're not going to get blown out by every team, but I do think that they should be below everyone else here except for Vanderbilt. Number 12 is Tennessee. Tennessee is interesting. You look at what they now have at quarterback with a couple of transfers coming in. Josh Heupel taking over. They had a mass exodus of guys leaving. I mean, so many players left this team, transferred out. They brought in some guys, though. They brought in some transfers. Juwan Mitchell from Texas, a big-time linebacker, going to help them out a lot. Tennessee is kind of similar to South Carolina. They're not going to be terrible. They're not going to get beat by 40 or 50 points in every SEC game. But I think it's going to be tough for them to win many games in this conference. They're going to score points. Josh Heupel coming over, you would expect them to be actually better offensively. This team should be able to score some points. They've got some guys on offense to where there's enough talent with Josh Heupel taking over where they should score some points, but that defense could be terrible. I mean, they could be really, really bad on that side of the ball. Lost a lot of guys, and it's going to take some time to get the defense back. A defense that really wasn't great last year anyway. So Tennessee, they're going to be in some shootouts probably, but that defense may cost them several games. Number 11 is Mississippi State, first team representing the SEC West. Some people are really high on this team. Remember, the FBI has the Bulldogs in the top 10. I'm not buying that. I don't think that this team is ready to make that type of jump in year 2 under Mike Leach. We got some options at quarterback. Will Rogers back, and then a couple of transfers coming in as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they do at that spot. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I think inconsistency is a big thing with Mississippi State. If you watched them last year, they had some times where they looked pretty good. Remember, they beat LSU in the opener, and they had other times where they looked like just one of the worst teams in the SEC. They were inconsistent, and you can kind of go back to Washington State with Mike Leach and look at his years there. They were inconsistent there as well. So I don't really know what we're going to get from Mississippi State. You'd expect that offense to continue to grow and get better. Lost some key players on defense, so I think they may take a little bit of a step back on that side of the ball. But the Bulldogs are a team that they probably can compete with most teams in the SEC, but I've got to put them here at number 11. Number 10 is Missouri. A lot of people are much higher on this Missouri team. I think they'll be a quality team, but I'm not buying them competing in the SEC East just yet. I think they've got a ways to go. Bazelak was really good at quarterback for them last year. Big time surprise, but they lost some key players. They won some close games last year. I think that maybe they were not quite as good as what their record would have suggested. Again, Missouri is going to be a solid team. They're a team that, we're starting to get to those teams where even the top teams have to work. If I don't think Alabama plays Missouri this year, but Georgia, let's say Georgia, Missouri, Georgia can't just show up and beat Missouri. Missouri's a good enough team that they're going to be able to challenge some of those top teams, and that's really what we're getting to. These top 10 teams are teams that I think could potentially pull off big upsets. They're capable, but they're not going to be consistent enough to finish near the top of the conference. And at number 9, we stay in the SEC East with Kentucky. Kentucky is really interesting to me. I think this team is really being underrated again this year. It seems like they always are. We're going to see what Joey Gatewood can do at quarterback, or perhaps Will Levis to transfer from Penn State. They've got a couple of guys there, a couple of options. They're supposed to start throwing the football this year at Kentucky. We'll see if they're able to do that. We know they're going to be able to run the ball. The offensive line should be strong for them again. And if you can open up the passing game, that's going to take some of the pressure off of the running game, and they might even be better running the football. We know they're going to have a solid defense. This is a team, just like Missouri, that I think is capable of possibly pulling off a big upset this year. But are they going to be able to consistently, beat all the top teams? No, they're not. But still, a quality team, a borderline top 25 team in Kentucky. Number 8 is Arkansas. Arkansas is another team that I think is right on that borderline, a team that could possibly sneak into the top 25 this year. You talk about returning production. Arkansas has a ton coming back. We're going to see about Jefferson at quarterback, and he take that next step. They've recruited pretty well the last few years. Even before Pittman, the recruiting was picking up. You've got talented guys around Jefferson there at quarterback. So, yeah, the offense should be better. They should take a step forward. The defense should be solid. You got a couple of really good linebackers returning. And Arkansas is a team that I think is not going to get blown out by anyone, maybe Alabama, but other than that, I think they'll be able to hang around and play with really anyone that they play this season in the SEC, and also including Texas. Number 7 is Auburn. Auburn, Arkansas, kind of close for me. I'm going to go with Auburn here just because I think they're a little bit more talented. They have a little bit more talent on the roster, but it's close. I'd be okay with Arkansas ahead of Auburn here. Bo Nix returning at quarterback. What's he going to do? Is he going to fix some of the problems he had last season? That'll be a big key for Auburn. I mean, Bo Nix will really determine how good this team is this year. You've got Tank Bigsby back at running back, maybe the best running back. I think Pro Football Focus might have actually rated him as the number 1 running back returning this year, a guy that just breaks tackles all over the place. You got him back. Really no proven weapons at wide receiver, an offensive line that struggled last year. But the defense should be strong. I think there's plenty of talent there on that side of the ball to where you could get a solid defense for Auburn. But again, it comes back to the passing game and Bo Nix. That's going to determine if Auburn can maybe finish a little bit higher than this or potentially lower than this if they struggle once again there. Number 6 is going to be Ole Miss. Ole Miss, a team that is getting some hype this year. I'm one of the people that tends to think this Ole Miss team is going to be very dangerous this year. You saw what the offense could do last year. Lane Kiffin coming in, it was just amazing how good they were offensively. Defense was pretty bad. I expect them to be a little better defensively, but I think they'll still struggle there. But this offense is going to be so good that it'll cover up some of those mistakes on defense. They're going to be scoring a lot of points. We saw them do it even against Alabama last year. If they don't turn the ball over too much, which is maybe one thing that's kind of slowed them down on offense, if they can take care of the football, Ole Miss is going to probably be right there at the top when we're talking about offenses in the SEC this year. And so because of that, they're going to be able to score with anyone. They're going to have a chance to beat anyone, and they're going to be a very dangerous team. Number 5 is Florida. Florida's interesting. A lot of question marks. We're hearing that the defense is supposed to be better this year. They're going to step it up on that side of the ball. They've got talent. It's not like this is a team. It's not a Vanderbilt team. They've got talent on defense. They should be better. Offensively, it comes down to Emory Jones. What's he going to give them at quarterback? It's going to be a different type of offense with a lot more quarterback runs and just, I think, running the ball in general. They've got a really good group of running backs now. In the passing game, though, how are they going to do in the passing game? Very similar to, Auburn. That's going to determine the success for Florida. If they're able to throw the football, not like they did last year, but just throw the football better than average, then Florida's going to be a very dangerous team this year because, again, they've got a lot of weapons, a lot of talent, and maybe they're even going to be able to possibly challenge Georgia if it all comes together for them. Challenge Georgia in the SEC East. Number 4 is LSU. I really want to put LSU at number 3, but you just got some question marks here. Linebacker, you wonder about that on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they're pretty solid there. I mean, they're going to be able to score points. Defensive line should be pretty strong for them. The secondary is really good. The starters are really good in the secondary, but they don't have a ton of depth. When I look at this roster, though, I like LSU's roster a little bit more than Texas A&M's. But you've also had, some off the field distractions. I don't know if that's going to possibly come back to hurt them at all. Maybe it goes away. I haven't really followed that recently. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's something that could potentially be a distraction for them. And again, it was very close for me. I know most people are putting Texas A&M ahead of LSU. I really wanted to kind of go against that and go with LSU, but I just kind of trust Jimbo a little bit more. I like the talent there at Texas A&M as well. I think the quarterback position is why I would favor LSU, but if we're talking just defense, running backs, offensive line, most of it kind of leans towards Texas A&M. So it's a tough one for me, 3 and 4. You could even almost put a tie here, but I'm going to go with Texas A&M at number 3. A team that, if Haynes King is really good at quarterback, if he is a star, Texas A&M is going to be very dangerous. They're going to be a team that could maybe beat Alabama. They could challenge for a college football playoff spot. They're going to be really, really good. If Haynes King is not great, if he's just average, A&M's not going to be great. They're going to lose 2 or 3 games. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's all about the quarterback. They've got a really good group of running backs. The offensive line should be pretty strong. They lose some guys, but I think they've got enough depth there where they'll be solid. Wide receivers need to step up. They've got maybe the best tight end in college football. Defensively, they're going to be really, really strong again this year. So it comes back to that quarterback spot for Texas A&M. If Haynes King is a Heisman candidate, and if he's kind of the next Johnny Manziel, this team is going to be very dangerous. If he's not, this team is going to be really good. They're still going to probably be a top 10, top 15 team, but they're not going to be able to challenge Alabama, and they're not going to challenge for a college football playoff spot. Now, the top 2 teams, I think they definitely will challenge for a college football playoff spot. Number 2 is Georgia. I've seen Georgia as high as number 1 in some preseason rankings. This team is loaded, especially on offense. JT Daniels giving them an element in the passing game that they just have not had. The offensive line going to be good. Just talent overall is going to be really good for Georgia. We know how they have recruited. They're right there with Alabama from a talent standpoint. Defensively, yeah, there's some question marks in the secondary, but other than that, really not much to worry about if you're a Georgia fan. Again, this team is going to be really good. They are going to, in my opinion, have a shot to make the college football playoff this year. I think they're one of the best 4 teams in the country. Will it play out that way? Will they get in the playoff? That's going to be tough because you have Clemson. You probably have Alabama in the SEC championship. And speaking of Alabama, we talk about Georgia and how they finally kind of evolved that offense. But doesn't it just kind of seem like Georgia is always one step behind Alabama? Alabama has already done it. They've, going back to Tua, they've changed their offensive philosophy. They've opened it up. And again, Georgia's just kind of playing catch up. To me, Alabama is still the top team in the SEC. Alabama, number 1 in our post-spring power rankings. There really are no question marks for this team, and they just keep getting better. You add in a couple of big transfers, Tuo from Tennessee at linebacker, Jameson Williams from Ohio State at wide receiver. This team is absolutely loaded. We're going to do our post-spring top 25 next week, and more than likely, I'm going to have Alabama at number 1. I don't think they were in my way too early top 25 poll at number 1, but now when you look at this team, this roster, you got Bryce Young at quarterback. He's going to be good. I know people say, well, he's never played. He's going to be good. It's just going to happen. You don't see Alabama just strike out with quarterbacks. He's going to be really good. They have a running back room that's probably deeper than anyone else in the country. The offensive line is going to be really good. Look at the wide receivers. Mechie is back. Now you add in Jameson Williams, Slade Bolden. You've got some very talented youngsters. Unproven, but they're going to be good there. Jaleel Billingsley at tight end is possibly going to be the next Kyle Pitts. I think Bill O'Brien really going to use the tight ends. This offense is going to be really good. And then defensively, the linebackers, probably the best group of linebackers in the country, especially with a transfer coming in that started last year in the SEC. The secondary will be really strong. The defensive line will be solid. Will it be a top 5 defensive line? Probably not, but it'll be good enough, and it'll be one of the probably top 20 off defensive lines. So really, there just are no question marks for Alabama. It's the most complete team in the country. and definitely in the SEC. I know there are some that would say Georgia should be at number 1 here, but no, I'm going to go with Alabama as the number 1 team in the SEC post-spring. That could change by the time we get to the fall. Maybe Georgia adds some transfers in there and I start to feel a little bit better about them, and maybe I switch them around. But for now, I think this is the best team in the SEC. I would love to know your thoughts. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Who would you move up? Who would you move down? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.